Guten Abend and Fraus und Scheiße. Guten Abend ein Fraus und Hells? Nein. Franz. Willkommen to this ein Nordschleifer. Yeah. There we go. German, my language I don't speak too often, and I've forgotten way too much of it. Good evening, everybody. How's it going? It's me. It's Carl, aka Scree. That rhymed a bit too much there, and I started to freak out a little bit. And we are here at Nuerburgring, aka the Dunkel Gran, Gran, and I can't remember what hell is in German. Green Hell, basically, and we are racing the Australian NLSA race, and yeah, we are going to be racing here at Nurbs, and it should be pretty damn exciting. Looking forward to this one. Always like, there we go, chat is up, there we go. Always love this circuit. It is such a demanding track though. We expect to be struggling a bit, but hopefully it will go well. We're going to be racing the Mazda MX-5 Cup in this. It's a multi-class race, so many different drivers and teams out here. We've got some competition in the Black Dog Motorsport car. It is wet out there, so let's put some wet tyres on for this, and we will just soften the anti-roll a little bit, I think. I think that should be fine. Okay, so let's go out and start doing some practice laps and see how we go. I guess it's going to be a tricky race. Oh, and my fat breast just smacking on the button there to turn my engine off. So currently leading the championship here, well, joint leading. Which is nice. But we'll see how this goes after today's race, because, well, this could be a chaotic one, especially with changeable conditions out here. If you're new to oval racing, racing, and you don't know about Nordschleifer, it's not like tracks you see in Formula 1 to this day. It is an old school track. It used to be a Formula 1 track back in the 70s, and it was stopped because it was stupid. Because it is a ridiculously large track. It's one of the largest tracks available today. It's a classic track, which means it is incredibly long. You know, lap time around here is going to be about 10 minutes in the dry in this Mazda. Lap record here is about 6 minutes, I think. 6 minutes something. It is a very big lap. A couple of hundred corners sort of lapping. It's a place where you don't really, unless you're a complete psychopath, you don't really know the track layout fully. You don't remember every single corner, but when you're driving it, it comes back to you and you sort of remember, oh yeah, this goes left, this goes right, this is a fairly fast corner, this is a fairly slow corner. You have to drive it almost like a rally stage. It is just that big and long. You do get used to it as you go along, but it is such a vast track that you do forget little bits as you're driving sometimes, you know, especially for me. Now, being a multi-class race, that means that we are going to have different classes of cars following us as well, and that adds a lot of difference into the driving, because when you're multi-class racing, you're going to have very fast cars and very slow cars, and the Mazda, well, it's one of the very slow cars. And this whole section is absolutely flat chat in the dry. In the rain, in a GT3, GT4, I think you'd be flat chat along here. In a car with no downforce, it's a little bit more... just take it a little bit easier. Now, there is the RS500 class, which is the Mustang, and whoever's driving that today deserves a medal, because that thing is going to be absolutely wild. A little bit of aquaplaning there, as we got a bit light over the corner. Oh. And a little bit more there, so these are things you've got to watch out for. And Nordschleife in the rain is a very different track to in the dry as well, because this place will bite you so many times in dry conditions. In the wet, it's just going to kill you. So you just have to be very cautious. Now, the awkward thing about this place is that it's going to be drying off at the moment and getting wetter. And when you've got a track the size of Nordschleife, what is it, 15.8 kilometres? No, more than that, isn't it? You know, it is... It's going to be dry in a lot of places and then still wet in some of them. So you're going to get overheating on the wet tyres. You're going to get, if you go out on the dry tyres, you're going to get driving on wet, slippery surface, and it's going to be perilous. So it should really make for an interesting race today, and it's going to be one of those races where survival is going to be a key factor. Got a yellow flag out here, so somebody's had a bit of an off. Which, as I say, is unfortunately very easy to do around this place. Now it's going to be a 2-hour race, so that's going to really make it quite difficult. So 2 hours around this place is going to be about... Ooh, sugar, 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 sugar. And that's how easy it is to have a wreck. But yeah, it's going to be a long old race around here. I'm going to head back to the actual pit lane. just see there, back end started actually going out before the corner. We took a little bit too much corner. It was a little bit wetter there than we expected. Back end started stepping out, we caught the curb, and that was basically it. Not race ending damage though, in all honesty. That was just, we managed to sort of stop it from being a race ender, but that is not what we want to do in the race. So actually going to stiffen up the anti-roll again. Let's look at the weather forecast. So it's just going to be damp the whole race long. It's not going to be pissing down with rain. It's just going to be damp weather, which is going to be yeah, it's going to be problematic, to say the least. You can see there the radar just showing us that not getting too much rain for a bit of time, but it's just going to be annoying amounts, really. So this could be a real tricky one for, well, everybody out there, really. Hopefully we get a few more people jumping in. We've usually had a good amount of people for the races, which has been really good. For some reason my crew chief is not jumping up. There we go, that's better. And you can't hear that, but I can. So just useful information for well, for everything really. Okay. Let's see if that's a little bit better with it being stiffer. Because also my force feedback was not quite feeling, being a bit softer. I wasn't getting as much feedback as I wanted. I kind of like a heavy steering wheel. Okay. It's always the thing with just doing little tweaks and stuff like that, trying to get a bit of an idea, try and get some temperature into the tyres before we make a final decision. It might be better going for a little bit softer. Obviously in dry conditions you want it to be a much stiffer car, but softer you need a little bit of a higher ride height, a little bit less in there. And one of the big troubles about this track is doing a little reconnaissance lap or a bit of an idea about setup. You're basically doing a full lap of this place, which is almost like doing a full test session run. You know, every lap around here is equivalent to about 3 or 4 laps, maybe even 5 laps of a regular circuit. You know, it is a very demanding place. So you can't really rely on lap time too much, because you just got to get a feeling for the car and get an idea if the setup changes you've made makes it feel better or worse. And currently it's feeling a bit better than it was. Even with that spin out of the lane. Tyre wear is not really something we have to worry about too much in this car either, because you can pretty much do a whole race on a single set of tyres in this thing. And there's one of the GT3s. Put the wipers on while we got a car ahead of us. Got to be careful of the side of the track, the curbs, the painted lines, all of those sort of things. It does make a big difference in the rain. But because of the dry conditions, you can afford to take it a little bit closer to the edge because, well, it's not soaking wet, it's just greasy, which is pretty much the worst. And it makes it so easy to make mistakes like that, so definitely don't downshift as much. Keep it in a slightly higher gear. I think that's going to be a big feature of this race. Let's see what the wet setup is like. It's definitely very greasy around this section of the track. I think everybody's struggling as well, which is it's a good sign, but it's also not a good sign. It's going to be a attrition based race, I think, today. And it's going to be a bit harder on the lower classes as well. So, you know, whereas the GT3s, the GT4s, I think are going to be it's going to be tricky for them, but with the downforce, it's going to make it a lot easier in a way. And the ABS and traction control adjustments that they have, whereas in the Mazda, it's going to be, well, it's going to be tough. Same for Toyota GR86s and things like that. So it's definitely going to be one of those races where people are going to struggle, I think. So that's going to be interesting to see how it goes. And as I say, I feel like the faster cars, although they're faster and they're going to be quite, well, quite a handful around here, I do feel like they're going to be offset by having that downforce, having that little bit of extra grip available to them, and also having a bit more adjustability. You can sort of see how the car just steps out under braking, especially in real high speed stuff in this Mazda. We put the brake on and there's any steering angle in there at all, it's veering to the left or to the right. Left or right, there we go. And that's going to really affect, it's going to be a lot of concentration needed for this one. So if I'm quiet, I apologise. It's going to be a full concentrate mode race, I think. I'm going to try to set a qualifying lap, although there's only 2 of us in a class, I think, so it's not really going to matter much, but I still like to try and get a lap in. Just for getting those laps done and dusted. We've got one of the GT3s, I think, coming up on us now. Honestly, conditions like this, it's all about smoothness and just being consistent. It's going to be very much a race of that. So, going to be interesting to see who gets victory today, because wet weather and rain is definitely not everybody's cup of tea. Much we can really adjust here as well, so I think we're just going to be going with well, with what we've got, I reckon. And seeing how this goes. So let's get out for a qualifying lap. Alright, here we go. It's not going to be the most wild lap you're ever going to see. I want to try and get a banker in, and that means no off tracks, because any off tracks, that's it, no qualifying lap. So we've got to keep a clean lap, and that's easier said than done at the Green Hell, because, well, on a 10 plus minute lap, it's very easy to have at least one little off track or a little slide and get a 0x or a 1x for that. That's loss of car control. So generally want to try and get the banker lap in for your first one, and then if you've got that beautiful lap in, then you can absolutely go hell for leather in the next couple of laps. But in conditions like this, it's not really going to suit that sort of absolute mad driving pace that you can do in the dry. So you're going to want to just keep it calm, keep it just nice and smooth for every qualifying lap and the race if possible, because guaranteed other people are going to be making a lot of mistakes along with yourself. So if you can make it mistake free, that's going to gain you a lot more time. Than going hell for leather and absolutely taking all the risks. So it's a bit of a Sunday drive mode, in all honesty, but one of those Sunday drives where you're not going slow, you're not just pootling around, you're absolutely hurrying it along, but at the same time you're full of a Sunday roast dinner and you don't want to make yourself throw up, so you're not going to go too mad, but you're also not going to be going slow. Because a mistake like that can happen in an instant. What a stupid mistake. Alright, that's mistake number 1 done. Alright. Oddly, music helps me in situations like this. So I am chucking on music. You won't hear it. So if you see me dancing and boogieing and just tapping my wheel and all this kind of stuff, you know what's going on. But looks like we are going to have to just be even a little bit more delicate than we were before, which is, as I say, I wasn't pushing it too hard there, and we still had a big loss. So just shows how easy it is. That's a corner that normally is just flat out, as I said, in this car. We lifted, and even that was not enough. So I think we're going to do a dab of brake in that corner just to make sure that we survive. Because, yeah, wet conditions like this, it's not, I say, it's not wet enough to be a proper wet condition. It's just slippery, greasy, horrible, slimy road conditions. And these are the worst because it's so easy to just have a slide, so easy to have the rear step out for no reason as well. And that's the hard part, is you might not be absolutely pushing it, but the rear is still going to step out on you at the most unopportune times, and you've got to be just so careful. So let's see if we can get this done. Now we start off on the Nuerburgring GP track, and it's a slightly shortened version of the track, and I hate it so much because of that last sort of corner, the really slow service road corner, because it is just such an awkward corner that's off camber, which in the dry makes it horrible to race. In the wet, it's actually not too bad. Being off camber, it means that you can take a racing line on it and you don't get too many puddles. So oddly enough, in wet conditions it's not a bad corner, but in the dry it is just evil. The other awkward thing about this place is the track is quite narrow, especially through the classic sections, which means that you kind of have to take the racing line, which is awkward in the rain like this because the racing line is full of rubber, and rubber makes the track slippery in the rain. You don't want much rubber on the track. You want to be taking different lines because, oddly enough, in the rain, if you take the racing line, it's going to be much worse. But when a dry line starts forming, you want to take that. So it's such a... Driving in the rain is such a different sort of... different style of racing a car. So I'm going to take a wider section through that corner now. And just give it a little dab of brake as well, just to be safe, I think, in future. Still almost getting up to 200 kph here. I'm going to take a wide entry in, try and cut it across and take a tight exit out here, just so we don't get too much of that horrible slippery rubber off the line, because it's a traction zone and a heavy braking zone. There's a lot more rubber in that corner than in some of the others, so the racing line there tends to be a bit more slippery and a little bit more treacherous. So we're going to just keep ourselves in a safe position. I think that's going to be my my tactic to survive this one, I think. Again, you just got to be careful of these really heavy traction zones and heavy braking zones. So they will have much more rubber on them, especially out of the corner. And that can really catch you out because it just gets the rear tyres and just loses traction. And that's when an accident can really happen. And my one real life car crash, that's what happened, is I was going through a spoon drain on a hot Australian day on the 20th of January, and my Commodore's rear wheels lit up and back end snap, 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 and all of a sudden I find myself flying towards a fire hydrant and decide, well, I better not hit that, I'll try and hit the curb. Hit the curb, bent the K-frame, completely bent the front right tyre into the wrong angle. Gave myself a massive concussion as my head smashed the window on the side. My airbags didn't go off though, which was either good or bad depending on which way you look at it. Had a nice big slash across my head, which was not so nice. Not the best birthday present, especially for your 20th. But it was Not the worst thing to ever happen, but it was not a nice accident, and then I had to drive it back home a couple of days later. The worst thing though is I had a big batch of enchiladas on the passenger seat, and they went flying everywhere. So the interior of the car looked like a bloodbath, but it was actually just tomato sauce, cheese, and other bits of enchilada, like sour cream and stuff like that. So that was a really frustrating thing, and especially because I cooked up a beautiful batch of enchiladas. So, you know, well, I think I was more annoyed about my cooking being destroyed than my car at that time. But it did mean I got to claim some insurance, get some money, and actually rebuild the car. So got it lowered, got the exhaust kit done, got a really nice set of brakes on it, shift kit. And yeah, my VX Commodore was then hoonified, which was nice. I feel like such a granddad driving around at the moment, but that's kind of what we need to do. Into the carousel we come for the first time today. Gently on the exit, because again there's going to be a lot of rubber on the exit of the carousel. If it starts heavily raining, we might even just avoid the carousel, just because we want to be a little bit cautious. Again, as I say, we've got no aero on this car really. It's just a stock Mazda MX-5, so it's all mechanical grip, which is actually what you want in rainy conditions like this, because aero is not that helpful. But having a little bit of aero on the rear is useful in a way, because that's going to push the car in. So you don't rely as much on aero grip as mechanical grip in the wet, but aero will definitely help a lot, so makes it a lot easier to drive. But a good mechanical grip car will always be good in the wet, won't be so good in the dry, whereas a good aero car will be good in the dry and good in the wet, but the mechanical grip car may have a slight advantage, and that's why you see in Formula 1 sometimes, well, you used to see like a lot of the really good mechanical grip cars, like Monaco, places like Monaco in the wet, where aero is not important at all. That's when you see those mechanical grip cars really coming to the forefront. Ease off over the jump. As I say, I don't know Nordschleife like the back of my hand, but I do know it well enough to drive here, you know? And this is the thing about this circuit, what I was saying, is you don't necessarily remember every single corner. You know, some of the really sort of nothing corners you kind of put to the back of your mind. Like this section here, you kind of just go, yep, I know it's pretty much flat out through that section, but then this corner creeps up on you. And this is a really tight corner that's easy to make a mistake in, and it turns into basically a second gear corner that's very tight, this tight left-hander. Over the crest, you're going to hit the mini carousel, and once you get to the mini carousel, you're pretty much at the end of the lap. Okay, we're not going to take the mini carousel next time round, I don't think, because look at how much slip we had on that one. You've got two right-handers, and then we go down the Dottergehoen, the big long straight. So the first right-hander is a little bit of braking. Second right-hander is almost flat out. In the wet, just a little bit of lifting. Dottergehoen, the long arse straight now, which is where we can shift up to fifth, take a bit of a drink. Maybe even slip it into sixth. No, we'll keep it in fifth. We're losing speed in sixth. It's such a long straight though. Under the Bilstein Bridge, and this is where you need to go, yeah, okay, we've got a left-hander coming up. Tiny little lift going into that corner, just to be safe. And now comes probably my favourite section of almost any racetrack. In the dry, this section here is flat out until you get to this little kink here, and then it is just brakes, brakes, brakes. Oh god, there's a wall. I'm going to die. You thread it through this little complex of corners, and then you're back onto the GP track. You turn right to go back on the Nordschleife, keep on going, and you're on the regular GP circuit. And that is a lap of the Nordschleife in the wet, an 11:42. And with that, I'm going to take a little bit of a break, I think, because I need to go and fill up my water bottle and get ready for the race, I think. So we should still have a few, I think about 10 more minutes of qualifying. So we've got a little bit more time before qualifying is over. If we look at the lap times, TCR is a 10:03. GT4 there is a 9:46, a 9:32 for the GT3, the Porsche Cup, I think that is, and a 9:20 for the GT2. Yeah, so that just shows the difference in time. You know, in the dry I can do about 9 minutes 50, I think. But in the wet, it is a lot slower. Alright, I'll be back with you again soon. And I'm back. So yes, getting ready for this one, and yeah, this should be interesting. We've got a third Mazda out here as well, so will be good to see what we're up against here. Bloody quick lap for Mesimo. Simon is incredibly quick. He is one of those drivers that is just ludicrously fast. So, yeah. James Foster taking pole by, geez, a 9:09. That is a very quick lap from James. Good friend of mine as well. So, good to see him out there. He's also one of those drivers that I'm in a bit of a battle with for the championship, and the way the championship works for the VLN for this series is a bit different to how you normally would. There's an overall championship that we're going for, which is all classes combined, so anybody can win it. It doesn't matter what class you're playing effectively. You can be in the slowest class possible and still get the championship points, and consistency can really pay off there. So it's good in a way because you've got that bit of incentive to drive other classes. So with this being the slowest class, I think the Mazdas, the slowest or second slowest, it's a kind of a little bit between, because you've also got the GRE6s out there, I think, who have got a bit more pace than us in the Mazdas. Looks like the NRG driver is struggling a little bit. Gary Thomas. But yeah, it means there's options for everybody, and it's kind of fun in that respect. I'm just driving because I like driving, and it gives me a bit of fun. So he says, as you know, I'm sure if I win the championship, it will be braggadocious. Well, of course I won. I'm amazing. I'm great. But in all honesty, it is that thing of I'm driving because I love driving and want to actually try and get better at driving. So this is really a good series to learn in, and been doing a lot of learning. But it's definitely going to be a tricky race tonight. Two water bottles set up as well because it's quite warm today as well. It's about 26 degrees. And it's sort of too hot to be comfortable, but it's not hot enough for the aircon to be really needed. It's got down to about 23 now. So I've got my fan on, but obviously when you're racing and when you're doing sim driving, you do tend to get quite warm. So it's Yeah. Alrighty. Alright, well, let's just double check everything's set up. And let's chuck a little bit more fuel in there. Chuck a full tank in there, I think. Because with our lap times, we might be able to just squeak through with not needing to come down the lane, or at least coming in for a very, very brief splash and dash. So that could be, it could be useful. So we'll see how that goes. So with the grid and forming up here, we just have to wait until the other classes go. So we need a 10-second gap between us and the other classes. So that's 10 seconds between us and the Toyotas. So it's a long old process for starting this one, and that's just to make sure that everybody's spread out a little bit, so you're not going to get too much chaos at the start, which is a good thing. But it does mean that there's a lot of waiting around and, well, I believe the term is bumble fucking.
Good luck, have fun now.
Yeah, good luck everybody, have a great race.
Discord Cal.
Oh, I'm streaming, so doing that part today. Ooh, stretchy stretch, weighty weight. So this is the bit that gets my nerves up. Let's just take a quick looky-loo at the weather. As I say, it's just going to be damp all race long, I think. So everybody's going to be struggling out here, I think. But just let the car tick over a little bit and get ready. Me a chance to give my glasses one last little wipe. There goes the TCR. Slowly getting there.
Come on, guys, let's go. He's not moving.
It's a 10-second gap between all classes. That's why we're waiting.
Fine, let's go.
So once Jared C is 10 seconds away. Put the old wipers on. I think somebody was a little bit slow away, because normally we don't get 20-second gap to the cars up ahead. Alright, and away we go. Race is on. And well, the race is underway. It's still really damp, and with it being so cloudy and foggy, it's going to be just not drying the track up at all. So it's going to be treacherous out here. We're also going to have to wait for our tyres to really start to get some form of temperature and grip into them as well. That's going to be the hard part. We should be able to get some temperature in by the time we actually get to the ring. But we're going to take these opening laps just cautiously. We don't want to lose too much time to Gary up in front though. Same time, we don't want to wreck it, so. Also a lot of spread of drivers' abilities as well, which is nice. You know, like I'm very much in the amateur low-end class of drivers. It sounds terrible, but you know, there are a lot better people out here. So Sean's had a bit of a moment. Massive understeer there. Just downshifting a bit too much. You've got to be careful downshifting as well in the rain, because you don't want your wheels spinning as much. So normally you sort of tend to keep to a high rev range, but sometimes that's not beneficial in conditions like this. But you don't want to have too low a rev range, because you then, if you're at too high a gear, you leave yourself open to issues and you can't use your throttle to actually save yourself. Should be a while before we see any traffic coming our way. By traffic, I mean us being traffic. So the leaders coming through to lap us. Should be about a lap or two, especially in these conditions. But they will come to us. So I think about lap 3 we should start seeing the leaders coming through. Probably switch our wipers off now as well, because it's not, as I say, it's not actually raining, it's just mist at the moment and fog, and wipers can be quite distracting as you're driving. So once we start getting closer to cars, that's when you're going to start to see the spray coming into effect and stuff like that. So again, it's just such a tricky race just to get. We just want to be safe, really. I think that's going to be the... no, it's not that exciting, but if we can be as relatively mistake-free as possible. Be okay. And we can also start to see... Nice thing about not having to use your wipers is you can start to see when it starts raining a bit heavier. So, coming into the carousel right now, there's going to be a little bit of spray still, even though we're about 15 seconds back from the next car, just the way the track is. But I think it's just started raining again, and iRacing's changed the way it rains as well. It's now more dynamic than before, so it does chop and change as you're going around, and it is really, really well done. But it is starting to rain a little bit again, just through this section of the track, and that means, depending on which way the wind is going to be going, we could be getting some heavy rain coming, and that could really change how the racetrack feels. The issue is as well is we're going to be burning off our tyres a little bit, as it's not that heavy rain. So our wet tyres will be going to sort of more slick tyres. As the tread gets worn down. And as the tread gets worn down, that means if it starts raining heavier, well, we're going to be in trouble. So keeping tyres alive is going to be a key feature of this race as well. It's endurance racing, which is something I adore, because in endurance racing, you don't have to be the fastest to win, you just have to be the smartest. And we'll see if that pays off today, because I'm not very smart, so we'll see if that helps. Up to the mini carousel again. I think we're going to take just a really wide line and not actually go on the carousel, because that concrete is very slippery. It's going to cost us a little bit of time, but I feel like it's a safer option of the car not spearing out the other side and rolling over and killing us. So at the moment we're about 27 seconds a lap slower than Gary Thomas, which is not good. But my hope is his tyres start to fall off. The other thing as well is we might be able to squeak through this without needing to stop. Pit stop here is about... it's a good minute and a bit, so that can really save us a lot of time. But obviously we can't afford to lose huge amounts of time. So we'll see what we can do. Wasn't overly cautious lap, that one, for the first lap, so I'm hoping we can get into a rhythm here and get comfortable and confident and start putting in some good lap times. I do wonder if some people have gone out on slicks as well, because it's not that heavy out here. It's those conditions where you could possibly go out on slicks. Now I'm pondering if it might be an option, but it is still very slippery, so hard to work out what's going to be the best option here today. Gary's had a bit of a moment and hastened back. My main goal for this race is to try and get through with 0x. That's a very lofty goal, I feel. Still don't have confidence through that corner, which is not great. But track is feeling good, not great. And again, as I say, it's just very much concentrating on being smooth here and just avoiding the curbs too much, trying to keep off the greasy lines. And also trying to keep these tyres in good operating temperatures and conditions, because the issue right now is it's going to be so easy to overheat the tyres, and we don't want to do that. Ideally, I'd like a little bit more rain coming down though, because it is drying quite well. There's still a lot of spray coming off our tyres, so if this was a normal track and if I was in a GT3 or something, I would probably consider coming into the lane soon. Like, that's the thing, is I would consider taking a bit of a gamble and risking it with some dry tyres. But being Nords and the way this track is, and also the amount of cars we got on track at the moment, it's not a huge amount of cars. So there's not a huge amount of rain being lifted off the track, which means that it's still going to be quite a bit of moisture in the air and on the track as well. But I do feel like slicks are going to be an option here unless it starts drizzling again. I'm not looking forward to that lap. First lap on slicks is going to be just miserable. We've got the race leader at the moment coming up on us, Mr. Mizomo. I think Simon's in the Porsche Cup as well, so he's not in the fastest car, but he is just ludicrously good. So it's like, crazy how quick he is. Track's gripping up though, that is the main thing I'm feeling at the moment. So I do feel like slicks could really be an option here. But it's going to be such a big gamble. And also slicks are going to be very unforgiving as well. Is any little mistake like that is going to absolutely murderize us on slicks. They are going to be a much quicker tyre once it's ready for them, so... what do we do? I think one more lap. We'll see. And say there's drizzle around, and that's going to really make this section horrible. But the rest of the track, I feel like, is drying up pretty well, so... see what the mini carousel's like. Still a bit treacherous. I do wonder if Gary is on slicks, because I mean, I'm not that fast, but I don't feel I'm that slow. We are seeing people coming in as well, so... could be a big mistake staying out one more lap on the wet tyres, but there is rain coming down. That's the thing, it's just so... You're damned if you do, damned if you don't right now. And not having anybody to really compare notes with is pretty hard as well, because you don't have anyone to talk to get their idea. You know, that's where having teams can really be helpful, is you might have somebody that started the race on slicks and they'll tell you, yeah, it's not working at the moment. If you know what people are on as well, that can make a big difference too, because you can look at their lap times. Obviously, around Nordschleife, that's not much help because the lap time is, you know, almost 10 minutes, but you can get sector times, you can get an idea of how quick people are going on different tyres. And these little specks of rain are not enough to really make a difference, you know, if you keep the tyres up to temperature. I guess what we can look at are those people that have stopped, because guarantee they've gone on to slicks. And if they keep crashing, or if they can't really get any pace in their tyres, then we kind of know what people are doing. It's still pretty damn treacherous out here. It's the trouble, is it's just hard to get an idea. But you can sort of see, just driving the normal lines now, the car is so much more responsive, even though it's a little bit wet. None of the leaders, like the top classes, have come in, and that is disconcerting. Also, I completely forgot to lift through there, but the car survived it, so that's telling me that there's a lot more grip now. But it was very much need a new pair of underwear through that section, so it wasn't exactly wasn't fun driving through that section then. I did think I was going to die for a split second, but there was grip, so had a race at Rugthorpe this week as well in the GT3s, and that was a similar treacherous condition race. It was a race where it was drying all race long. Started the sprint race on slicks and it really didn't pay off, so I guess I've got that in the back of my mind of just how treacherous it is driving a well balanced GT3 race car in these conditions. But the way Gary is catching up to those Toyotas is, as I say, he's either incredibly good, which is always a possibility, or he's on slicks and those guys are on wets, and the slicks seem to be so much faster at the moment. If they are slicks on his car. And weather-wise, not really due to get too much more rain, but as you can see on the windscreen, there is still rain in the air, because it is that misty, foggy day where it's going to be putting moisture on the track. And the issue with that, if it was sunny right now, I think I would come in for slicks. I would have come in for slicks on the last lap, because that's going to dry the track up. The fact it's so cold and it's so damp in the air means that the track's really not going to be drying up that quick. So, God, it does leave you just wanting somebody to give you that little bump to go, yep, jump onto slicks right now, you'll be fine. Or stay on wets, because, yeah, you're going to be struggling out there on slicks. But, as I said, track is drying. And the wet tyres on these Mazdas, it's almost like a road tyre. It's not like in, say, Formula 1 or, you know, those really high-powered cars where it just melts as soon as there's no moisture on the track. It's not that terrible in this car, but you can see the difference in pace. It is just... because, of course, the slick tyre does not have any groove, so you can't really get on any wet lines. I think if we see Shane pulling it in, if we see those Toyotas pulling it in at this lap, I think they're going to be switching to slicks. Yeah, I think it's time. Because we are losing hand over fist at the moment to Gary. Alright, let's pull it in. We'll get fuel to the end. And we'll switch to slicks. Okay. Hopefully this is the right choice. And this is going to be the fun part. Just need to get temperature into these tyres and just know where everything is sitting. But we've got grip, that's the main thing. So the car is not impossible to drive. So let's see if we can start eating into that lap time a bit and see what we can do here. Ooh, curb, don't do that. This first lap is going to be relatively slow as we just try and find the limits of the tyre. And also just get an idea of how the car is going to sort of handle in this sort of greasy, damp condition. As I say, it's going to be avoiding as many curbs as possible, because if we touch a curb, I think we're going to be deaded. And also not wanting to go too far offline for faster classes, because again, that's just going to hurt us. Also, there's going to be puddles on the inside there, so we want to avoid them a little bit, because that's just going to cause us to aquaplane. Paul Sanders is on wets, we should start closing in on him pretty quickly. Oh, shit. Yeah, still not flat out there. There's a nasty little wet bit on the inside there that we sort of hit, and the car just no steering whatsoever there for a few seconds. That is what I was afraid of on these wet tyres. On these dry tyres, I mean. Not a big hit, and the car feels okay. Steering's right hand down a little bit. When you have a moment on slicks on a wet track or a damp track like this, it's basically just you're just praying that it's not too bad, because there's nothing really you can do in that situation. Car just, you put the brakes on, you steer, there's nothing that will do. Just slides, and it's just like holding on for dear life. And obviously a track this big as well is you're going to have so many different like so much standing water in some places with dry in other places, and this is the part of the track I think that's at its wettest still, which makes it very, very, very scary. And do not touch curbs. As you can see, it's just, it is very treacherous out here still. Kind of going to avoid the carousels this lap, just because, well, it's terrifying for one, but secondly, I just feel like the car's just not quite going to stick to them. This is not the easiest, let's just say. Yeah, do not do the mini carousel with these tyres on. Might need to make a splash and dash at the end, but we'll see how this goes. I wonder if Gary's made a mistake because he is in the pit lane for a long old time. Let's see now. Mistake-free lap, Carl. This is what you need to do. Definitely got a little bit of steering damage, but it's not bad. It's not making it impossible. My most hated corner on the track. Still a bit of rain around this section of the track as well, so just wanted to take it a tiny bit easier. Steering is just so light when we're going through the exit of corners. again, just not quite got the confidence to fully flat out through some of these corners, which in the dry are flat out, but I do feel this section here is probably the worst part of the track at the moment, just for us at least. Careful on the inside of corners again, just not to get too much into puddle territory. Anywhere where the car gets light is just danger as well. Still see the back end just gets really treacherous on the exit. Some of those corners is this is a challenging experience. See what the carousel is like. Not too bad. I think mini carousel's still very much not fun, but shit, shit. Why did you lock up their rear wheels?
Carl, are you on slip?
I am indeed. It is tricky. Come on. Recenter yourself, Carl. Unfortunately, you can't change brake bias in this car, which would be nice because I would like to have a lot more in the front. Come on. You can do this, Carl. I can't do this. Alright. That's our race effectively over. Well, that did not go as well as expected. And that incident very much destroyed that bit of the race. As you can see, missing a wheel, that's not good. That was a big old crash. Just too much speed in there. Hit. So, the trouble is there's a puddle obviously at this dip, and we've gone through it. And slide. Bonk. Race done. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, really. I think that's race over for me. So, yeah, sorry, it wasn't much of a stream, really. It wasn't really that exciting at all. Terrible drive by me tonight, so, yeah. Really not what we wanted, but we're not the only one in the wars. You can see Foster here missing, well, quite a bit of rear suspension. That car just sliding up. Quite a few cars in for major repairs as well. And in Gary, you see like a lot of big incidents here today, so that's it. There's quite a lot of people taking a lot of damage, but yeah, that's effectively race over, unfortunately. So thanks for watching. Hopefully things will go better next time. Alright, bye bye all.